Welcome back, adventurers! Today we are continuing our video series covering everything you need to know for my Pathfinder 2nd Edition Homebrew Setting, the Follies of Novus Aurum. In this video we will continue to explore the 8 families that control the city. If you have watched any of my previous videos on the families, feel free to skip the intro and go to the timestamp on the screen. Otherwise, here we go. An important note right at the top. While these organizations are called families, almost none of them are actually based on any sort of bloodline or lineage. They are mostly referred to as families because the first one to be formally founded, the Nacelli, did spring up from a family. The others are mostly groups of individuals united by a common goal, an ideology, or just the kind of business they are in. Outside of the higher-ups in the Nacelli, being born to members of a certain family does not guarantee you membership. Many children do go on to work for the same family as their parents, but it is not guaranteed or automatic. These are not sworn houses of the old days. They're more like corporations or unions. Also, I wanted to mention the concept of favored subclasses. These are the custom subclasses I am making, and each family has one tied to them. These are subclasses that are either found in great numbers in a specific family, or that they pursue due to their skill sets. Not every fortune-kissed sorcerer is a part of the Nacelli, but a lot of them do end up working for them, and the family does have a fondness for the subclass. These subclasses also are a work in progress, so I will only be outlining the concept behind the subclass for the moment, with the proper rule sets coming later. And lastly, and this is important, players do not have to align themselves with one of the families. The families are there as options, not inevitabilities. Also, it is not unusual for citizens to have one foot into one family business and the other in a different one. Many institutions in the city are often sponsored by a combination of families where their interests overlap. Casadina artisans work with Babylos builders to create statues and interior design. The libraries, schools, and the universities are collaborations between Icarith, Cyronel, and Sesharin educators, to say nothing of the myriad trade schools of the Babylos. Finding oneself with one foot in 2 or more worlds is not unheard of, and not even necessarily frowned upon. Most of the time. You can work for a family without pledging your absolute loyalty to them. They are well aware many are just looking for a job or income. That being said, for those who are willing to show long-term exclusive commitment to a particular family, there are rewards aplenty. Loyalty is made of diamond, not gold, so the saying goes. But let's start discussing the 2 specific families that this video will feature, the Cyronel and the Sesharin. Caught between clashing forces and always struggling to do all they can for their patients, the healers of the Cyronel family practice their craft on the battlefields of Novus Aurum. In the modern era, the Cyronel are the family that oversees the vast majority of all medical care in the city. And this means any kind of medicine. Everything from pediatrics to disaster triage. The Cyronel have trained practitioners ready to answer the call. And it really is a calling, as almost no one joins the Cyronel for wealth or prestige. The hours are long, the conditions often unpredictable, and there are never enough trained staff to go around. All the while they struggle to stay neutral in the arena of city politics, but unable to stay completely on the sidelines, lest they be blindsided by some new development. But they persist, as they always have, because they are called to serve, and they took an oath. While there have always been individuals with some training in healing on the island since the days of the first rush, it was only after the first dust fever outbreak that a significant number of professional healers, doctors, and alchemists were summoned to help deal with the crisis. Many chose to stay to continue to care for the growing population after things calmed down. But the outbreak had brought a problem into focus. Too many independent healers with too many different ideas on how to treat the fever had prolonged the crisis unnecessarily. After the dust settled, so to speak, A majority of the remaining healers sat down and came to the agreement that they had to organize. For the sake of those under their care, they needed to share resources and communicate better with each other. Following the example set by the Babylos, the Cyronel family was formally founded. Chief among their immediate concerns was the alarming discovery that had been made regarding magical healing. Since their arrival on the island, healers had found that magical healing had become unreliable. Clerics and druid healers reported that repeated uses of healing spells within a short period of time would occasionally result in the spell simply fizzling, and in rare occurrences, a dangerous magical backlash would manifest. Many theories have been suggested as to the cause, but the immediate concern was what to do about it. Medicine is often a matter of life and death, and even with the speed and efficiency of magical healing, the very idea that it could fail at a critical moment was very concerning. This led to the practice of withholding magical healing unless the need was dire. Unfortunately, this then meant relying on mundane, non-magical healing, which requires greater amounts of time and material resources. Unwilling to raise costs on their healing, the Cyronel attempted to compensate for these greater expenses by more efficient management of their resources. And this worked somewhat, for a time, combined with occasional donations from grateful patients or good-natured citizens. But for most of their early years, funding was a persistent concern for the Cyronel. This would change after the arrival of one Armand Joneshi. A sort of gentleman adventurer, Armand had come to Rubbleport to seek his next great adventure in the ruins of the old city. What specifically, if anything, he hoped to find in the ruins, no one will ever know. Not long after he began his adventures in the caves under the ruins, there was an accident, and Armand was seriously injured. His companions were able to bring him back to the surface, and before too long he found himself under the care of the Cyronel. Armand had led something of a charmed life up to this point, and this was the first time he had been seriously injured, so the experience was a bit of a shock to him. His pride and body had both been wounded. And while his injuries were extensive, they were not immediately life-threatening, so as was Cyronel policy at the time, he was assigned a room in the long-term, non-magical healing area, where, while there, his primary caregiver was a young woman named Anna Starling, and her kindness and beauty captured Armand's heart. Just as he was about to be discharged, though, he witnessed Anna collapsing from exhaustion. He quickly learned about the state of the Cyronel resources and how many of the healers were pushing themselves to exhaustion to keep up with the needs of their patients, sometimes working a second job to help bring in more funding. Armand was appalled that such selfless and compassionate people were working under such conditions, and resolved to do everything he could to assist them. Foregoing any further exploration or adventures, Armand began using his wealth and charisma to convince prominent members of the island community of the necessity of a well-funded Cyronel. He was relentless and imaginative in his efforts. All the while, he courted Anna as she recovered, and eventually they married. To this day, their family is deeply interwoven with the Cyronel, and some of, if not the, most dedicated members. That is not to say that the Cyronel are no longer worried about their funding, but the work Armand did, and the work his family has continued to do, has ensured that much of the burden is shouldered collectively by the other families, including footing the bill for major clinics, hospitals, and research labs. Even power-hungry capitalists need to go to the doctor sometimes, and can be begrudgingly convinced that healers should have enough resources to do their jobs. This has also led to a general understanding that the Cyronel clinics and hospitals are neutral ground, and breaking this rule is an easy way to have multiple families put a price on your head. Not that some more ruthless or desperate miscreants haven't tried. No one worries about consequences if they are confident they won't be caught, after all. Oh, and speaking of miscreants, the Cyronel have been battling another foe since their inception. Ever since the discovery of the elemental shards, unscrupulous snake oil salesmen and the like have peddled any number of tonics and elixirs, claiming that they can heal or empower with the use of the shards. They inevitably have the opposite effect, and the Cyronel healers are left to deal with the aftermath. Every few years, a new strain of dust fever is accidentally created by these opportunists, keeping the fear and hysteria alive around an ailment that should have long ago died off. A more positive relationship the Cyronel have is with the Sesharin monks. Though they lack the specialized and professional training of the healers, the Sesharin can be found anywhere those in need require assistance. They often work under the direction of the Cyronel, providing necessary manpower when only a single professional healer can be dispatched. This is often the case in the less well-off neighborhoods of the city. The Cyronel technically own the clinic and have the last word in any medical decisions, but the vast majority of the staff is often the monks. This is one of the rare instances of two families working closely together on a daily basis. It helps that they are the rare two families who seemingly have no interest in wealth or power and simply wish to continue helping people. The Cyronel Bastion is the first garden, the largest house of healing in the city. A relatively new building with a central multi-tiered garden atrium with a multitude of unobtrusive mirrors that bring daylight to each level. The building was made for the Cyronel, with all the other families contributing to the costs, as recognition for the tireless service the healers have given to the city. The garden layers are maintained by a joint effort of the Cyronel and the Sesharin, and its beautiful flowers are a great comfort to many convalescing patients and their visiting families. There are also sections where medical herbs are grown as well, for use in the in-house pharmacies. Some notable Cyronel include the Armand Starling twins, Mary and Charles, the great-grandchildren of Armand and Anna. The twins are beloved figures both within the Cyronel family and in high society. Mary is a dedicated researcher and is the foremost expert on the dust fever and its many variants, while Charles is a tireless lobbyist and advocate for the Cyronel family and is a constant fixture at high society parties. He has single-handedly made the annual Cyronel fundraising dinner the event of the season. They are also both drop-dead gorgeous. Then there's Dr. Necrostein, an outlaw doctor currently on the run. She was caught conducting unsanctioned research on human cadavers, possibly to create an army of advanced flesh golem super soldiers. Rumor has it, after being chased from several makeshift labs, she may have found refuge underground, continuing her mad research far from prying eyes. And finally, there's Hebram Goggins, known to some as the Back Alley Surgeon General. He is the go-to back alley doctor, and his clinic is fortified and guarded like a bunker. Hebram came from one of the worst neighborhoods in the city, and when his talent was noticed, his friends and family came together to pay his medical tuition. He has never forgotten where he came from, though, and as soon as he graduated, he returned to use his skills to help the people who believed in him. The Cyronel favored subclass is the Street Triage Alchemist. They can use their triage treatment skill to temporarily remove conditions and grant temp HP. It is a special medicine check that can be done in addition to battle medicine, but only once per patient per encounter. They have a number of abilities that only work while in combat, as they are seemingly fueled by stress. In the city where most seem to worship wealth and material goods, the Sesharin Order stand as a stark contrast. A spiritual order that forsakes material possessions and individual aspirations, they stand out even more in the glittering modern era than when they first arrived on the island. They are similar to the Cyronel family in that they are primarily concerned with service to others, but differ in their methods. While the Cyronel minister to the physical health of the citizenry, the Sesharin believe it is their calling to see to the health of their souls. Though, I should make something clear right away. This may sound all very religious, but the Sesharin worship no real divinity or pantheon, and instead adhere to a philosophy and lifestyle in accordance with their central belief, the singular myriad. To grossly oversimplify, The singular myriad is a belief system that states that all beings are in fact fragments or facets of a greater whole, and that misfortune or suffering of one person in fact damages the whole. And the greatest source of suffering to them is spiritual more so than physical. All the gold in the world smelted down cannot mend a single heart, they like to say. The Sesharin order is unique in Novus Aurum in that, unlike most other families who came together after some time on the island, the order arrived fully formed, so to speak. Ostensibly, they came to attend to the spiritual needs of any survivors, and when none were found, they declared that they would stay on to assist in rebuilding and to tend to those who now called the island their home. Rumor has it that once their presence was established enough, the sacred bones of their founder was brought over in a sacred reliquary, but no one has ever been able to confirm this. This is fairly typical of the Sesharin, as though they are forbidden to lie by their code, they find many ways not to answer questions regarding their history and internal practices. They wouldn't call themselves secretive, just private. Another thing that sets them apart is their rather uneventful history on the island. There have been no great scandals, no sudden shift in their practices, or anything that can really distinguish them in the modern era compared to when they first arrive. We carry on, as they like to repeat. How the Sesharin fit into the system of the city is interesting, as one could say they seek to fill in the gaps. First and foremost, they offer a home to those left adrift in society. Joining the order and forswearing material possessions is not a hard sell to those who are already down on their luck, and the order does provide food, a roof over your head, and for many, a purpose. One of their most well-known practices is their devotion to physical mastery of their own bodies. They see the body not just as a container of the soul, but something to harmonize with, the end goal being to attain greater clarity and strength of mind. Many a morning, both in their temples and in public green spaces, young initiates and aged masters alike can be seen exercising and running through various martial arts drills. Equally important, though, is their work outside the temple, as their belief system holds that any suffering is an open wound in the singular myriad, so they seek to bring comfort to others as well. And while they do offer spiritual advice whenever asked, they are well aware most citizens are first and foremost concerned with physical and immediate concerns. And so, the monks are found in the many homeless shelters, soup kitchens, public green spaces, and even community gardens they maintain. The purpose of the shelters and kitchens is fairly obvious, but you might ask, why green spaces and gardens? Living in harmony with the world is a key tenet of their beliefs, and this includes the natural world. The gardens they tend to are both practical vegetable gardens and beautiful, meticulously planned flower gardens. The flower gardens they tell you feed the soul, as their vegetable gardens will feed your stomach. And while they engage in these labors with no expectation of payment, they never turn down donations to the temple, be they material or financial. Something I do want to make clear, however, with all their talk of harmony and simple lives of study and service, one might think the monks would be easy to push around or take advantage of. This is a mistake most only make once, as once someone joins, no monk leaves the temple until they have a high level of skill in martial arts, even if they are leaving to be gardeners. Anyone who has willingly joined their ranks is incredibly important to the order, as they are seen as the way the order to continue their work in the physical world, and being able to defend oneself is vitally important. One can only heal the world if you can take action, after all. And this does bring me to the one issue some have with the Order. Their mission of greater harmony with the world is literally sacred to them, and they can be incredibly defensive and stubborn in face of any perceived disruption. They have engaged in massive sit-in protests when just one of their monks was brought in for even a brief questioning. They insist any issues with any of their members be dealt with internally, and allow no outside observers to witness however they deal with it. And this may all be benign, but their lack of transparency gives many pause. The Sesharin Bastion is the Gateless Temple, an expansive but humble structure at the southern end of the island. What began as a simple collection of cottages today stands as beautiful prayer and training halls set in between tranquil gardens. While the temple famously has no lockable doors, the few who have been foolish enough to try and steal from the monks have quickly regretted this choice. And while the temple does truly seem to have no locked doors, rumors swirl of masterfully hidden secret doors leading to hidden sanctums and repositories of lore. All unconfirmed, of course. As a final note, the Sesharin just kind of claimed land they built their temple on. Unlike the Cyronel, who were often gifted the land and facilities for their clinics, the Sesharin just kind of move into unclaimed or unused spaces, and unless someone makes a big stink about it, they just stay. Some notable Sesharin include Honored Elder Ghaarl, a positively ancient dwarf, plagued by arthritis and nearly blind. She is a beloved figure in the city, and is held in the highest regard amongst her comrades in the Order. She is perhaps the most experienced and accomplished diplomat in the city, and a tireless advocate for the voiceless and the downtrodden. Many say the Sesharin dedication to peace and harmony is exemplified in the Elder. Then there's Abbot Ghaarl Kotomine, a respected member of the Order. The Elven Abbot was well known as an exemplar for the Sesharin values of selflessness and compassion. A few years ago, however, she abruptly declared that she was setting out to minister to the lost souls rumored to live under Novus Aurum, in the deep ruins of the old city. The Order quickly lost contact with her, and she has not been heard from since. And then there's Elder Dasho, a gregarious lizard folk. Dasho is the administrator and head chef of the largest homeless shelter in Novus Aurum, the Hail Nest. Dasho is very open about his beliefs that a healthy soul must come from a healthy body, and a healthy body can only start with a healthy meal. The Sesharin favored subclass is the Harmony Stance Monk. Their abilities revolve around trading damage for affecting the mental state of their foes, and with harmonizing with the world to such an extent it borders on the supernatural. As a final note, I did want to mention an additional important collaboration. All the institutions of education in the city, from daycares to post-secondary education, is a three-way collaboration between the Cyronel, the Sesharin, and the Icarith. While there are teachers and professors employed that have no direct affiliation to any of the families, a great many of them are, and they are responsible for the facilities and the upkeep. In addition to their own medical education programs, the Cyronel also offer a great many courses in biology, chemistry, and general health studies. The Sesharin are found mostly teaching history, life sciences, and philosophy, while the Icarith handle math, physics, and a host of other scientific pursuits. There is often overlap, especially with the Cyronel and Icarith. The other families do have their own programs as well, with the Bablos teaching architecture and the Casadina involved in a variety of fine arts programs, to name just a few. Secondary education is not free in Novus Aurum, despite the best efforts of some in the city, though there are a lot of scholarships offered every year for those who are willing to put the work in. And that is it for this set of families. Next video will be about the free-spirited Zephyrinit and the resolute Argonrath. If you want to be alerted to when the next video is released, like and subscribe, and most importantly, if you have questions, please be sure to leave them in the comments. I will try and address any comments in the next video. So, thank you all for watching, and until next time, may all your hits be crits, and all your rolls be golden. Bye!